Welcome pilots, my name is Hybrid V and today I'm going to walk you through the basics of ship combat in the Star Citizen universe. Okay, so you know how to fly around the verse as well as take off and land, all while looking like a pro at it. Or at least you should have if you checked out my basic flight guide. Before we can even begin to talk about combat, you will want to at least have the basics of space and atmospheric flight down. So if you still have not gotten your space legs yet, you should definitely check out my previous videos first and practice a bit. Link will be in the description box below. Star Citizen is a complex simulation with a lot of moving parts that I simply can't cover in a single video. However, if you want to go deeper into the various mechanics involving space combat, there will be additional links to some of my other video topics in the description that will help you out. Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover, so be sure to check out the pinned comments below for timestamps or the chapterized sections on the secret bar if you want to jump to a specific topic. Got it? Good. Let's get started. To start with, let's first talk about your ship and its role it plays in keeping you alive. Every ship currently in Star Citizen has a health pool. When that health reaches 0, your ship will blow up. Wings, weapons, and other components can be damaged or destroyed, sure, but ultimately your ship's overall health is what matters most. Most of your ship's health is tied to the main fuselage of the ship. If this gets too damaged, the ship will pop. Luckily we have shields to help block some of that incoming fire, but they will only absorb so much damage and could collapse during a fight. If this happens, it may be wise to run away and let those shields recharge before diving back into the fray. On your MFDs is a self-status page which gives you a quick overview of the status of your ship, including shield strength. If parts of the ship are red, then they are damaged or close to being destroyed. If the main hull itself is red, then the ship may be close to destruction, so watch out. As you take damage to thrusters and other components, the ship's performance will start to degrade, leading to rougher flight characteristics and other anomalies that can be disadvantageous in a fight. Be sure to visit a port or landing site for repairs to ensure that your craft is operating at peak. You can repair at any major port or landing site while on a pad by opening your Moby Glass with F1 and finding the Station Services app. Here you can spend some cash to repair, rearm, and refuel your ship. Along with the self-status MFD, there's also a target MFD. This works much the same way as the self-status page, but it will instead show the status of the currently selected target. Everything from shield status to a visual representation of the health of individual parts of the targeted ship will be displayed here. Once again, red parts indicate heavily damaged or nearly destroyed sections of the ship. This page also shows the model of the ship you're currently targeting and the name. There is also a shields page on your MFD that will give you a numerical readout of your ship's current shield status. As the shields take hits, there will be a small cooldown before the shields begin to recharge. You can see this cooldown effect directly from this page. If you want a more detailed breakdown on the MFDs and their various pages, be sure to check out my comprehensive MFD guide in the description box below. Alright, let's move on. So let's talk about radar signatures. On your HUD, you will see small color-coded chevrons as you fly around. These are signatures that your passive radar is picking up. Blue is friendly, red is hostile, and white is neutral or unknown. These radar contacts will also show on the radar display in your cockpit. As you nose your crosshair over these radar contacts, they will glow brighter than normal. This means that you have selected the signature. Pressing T will lock the currently selected radar signature. You can also utilize free look to select other various signals as well. Note that when you target a ship, they will receive an audible warning that someone is targeting them. You will also receive these same audible warnings as well. Some people may perceive being targeted as a threatening gesture, as targeting locks weapons and sensors directly to the target. If you want to learn more about an NPC or player without actually targeting them, you can instead switch to your scanner with the V key. In this mode, you can scan ships and other objects by holding down the left mouse button while aiming at it. The longer you hold down your mouse button, the more data the scanner will pick up. These scans provide info such as cargo, ship model, owner, health, whether they're a criminal or have passengers, and much more. In this mode, you can also hit Tab on your keyboard to send out a pulse that will report any bounce backs in the form of these small squares. These bounce backs report anything from nearby ships to mineral deposits for those of you that want to mine. Bounce backs can also be scanned if desired. Press V again to exit scanner mode. But let's say you actually do have a hostile that is bearing down on you. Well, it's time to get the fangs out. After targeting them, you will notice that the chevron changes to a box with an arrow. This is to give you an idea of what direction the target is facing in relation to you. There will be additional info such as the target's name, distance, and speed relative to yours. Note that the target's speed will show positive and negative values, indicating whether the target is moving towards you or away from you, respectively. You will also notice a small circle dancing around them. This is the PIP, or Predicted Impact Point. This is the computer's recommended firing solution for getting rounds on target. You simply aim your crosshair at the pips and pull the trigger for best results. While the target is selected, if the pips are a small circle, then the target is too far for your current weapons. As you enter effective range for your weapons, the pips will turn into a box. Nosing the crosshair over the pips will turn them into a green diamond, indicating a good firing solution with a high probability to hit. Left mouse button to fire your weapons from the first weapon group, and right mouse to fire from the second group. The pip will begin to blink rapidly each time there is a successful registered impact on the target, as well as there will be an audible hit marker sound effect playing from the ship's computer.
Target destroyed.
Pips by default are set to a mode which is called lead pips, which shows you where you need to lead your shots to hit the target. In the options menu under game settings, there's an option to switch the default pips mode from lead to lag, which shows a lag indicator instead of a leading one, showing where the shots will land.
Target destroyed.
Lag pips may be a bit confusing at first, but it's actually quite simple. Instead of aiming at the pips with your crosshair, you will instead aim the actual pips at the target. Both modes are great, but in my personal opinion, I do like to use lag pips because it allows me to focus on both putting the pips on the enemy ship while at the same time keeping my eyes on them to see what they're doing. With lead, your eyes will be mostly trained on the pips more than the actual enemy ship, which can be great for generalized accuracy rather than pinpoint aiming. For most pilots, it really is mostly Coke and Pepsi. However, I would recommend you try out each mode yourself to see what you prefer. You can also bind a key in the keybinds menu to switch between each mode at will. On the top right hand side of your HUD is your currently loaded weapons. These boxes indicate the status of weapons loaded and how much ammo they have. It will also indicate any heat buildup. Weapons assigned to Group 1 are on the left side, and weapons assigned to Group 2 are on the right side. You can manually alter weapon groupings at any time on the weapons page of your multifunction displays. This page also displays other statuses such as ammo and any wear or damage the weapon has. A lot of ships generally come with what are called gimbals. You can flip gimbals on at any time and cycle through their different modes with the G key. Gimbals are pucks attached to the weapon hardpoints of the ship. They give the attached weapons a high amount of traversal. This then opens the possibility of having your weapons aiming be controlled either manually or by the ship's onboard targeting computer. There are 3 gimbal modes: fixed, auto, and manual. Fixed is straightforward. It locks the gimbals forward to the crosshair with minimal aim assist. Handy for pilots that want to enjoy that aim down sight style approach to their dogfights. Auto mode hands the weapon's targeting systems over to the ship's targeting computer. When active, a circle will appear at the center of the HUD. This is a visual indicator letting you know the max angle the gimbal can hold. If your target exceeds this angle, the gimbal will stop tracking. Once you have a target in the large circle, a smaller circle will appear. This smaller circle is a visual reference as to where the gun barrels are currently aiming. The targeting systems will always attempt to track the pip of the currently selected target. Once the pip lights up green, the computer will have a solid firing solution. This mode is great for beginners as it lets you focus on maneuvering while not needing to have pinpoint aiming. Just remember that the accuracy of auto gimbals is affected by your maneuvering. Flying well above SCM speeds can potentially cause incorrect calculations, which in turn causes the gimbals to have trouble establishing a lock or follow the target. Manual mode allows you to manually aim the guns with your mouse. You can pull double duty by both flying and aiming at the same time. While very accurate, this mode could potentially cause some maneuvering issues in certain situations, like when trying to engage an opponent while keeping a high angle of attack. Flip between each gimbal mode and see what you like best. The gimbal status indicator is on the bottom right hand side. This will let you know what your gimbal is currently set to. Note that if you have fixed non-gimbal weapons loaded out on the ship, you will not be able to change the gimbal status due to, well, not having a gimbal. In their simplest form, ship weapons are broken down into 3 categories: repeaters, cannons, and scatterguns. Additionally, they're also broken down into size categories, from size 1 all the way to size 10 and beyond. Repeaters have a high fire rate with high projectile velocities but low damage, making them perfect for anti-fighter roles. Size 1 through 4 repeaters are generally used for anti-fighter roles, while size 5 through 7 repeaters on the other hand are more suited for countering heavy fighters and large multi-crew ships. Cannons fire projectiles at slower paces than their repeater counterparts but do an impressive amount of damage, making them much more useful as a counter to heavier craft. Size 1 through 4 cannons are used for taking on heavy fighters and smaller multi-crew vessels, while size 5 through 7 cannons are best suited for taking on capital and sub-capital class vessels. Scatterguns fire their projectiles in a shotgun-like pattern, making them dangerous at close range. They range anywhere from size 1 to 6 and can be used for both dogfighting and in anti-heavy fighter roles, though many pilots prefer them for the latter. I don't recommend scatterguns, however, for rookie pilots due to the amount of skill required to use them. Additionally, weapons are subdivided into 2 additional categories, which are lasers and ballistics. Lasers, despite their colloquial naming convention, instead fire superheated projectiles at the target that can collapse shields and melt hull plating. Their biggest strength is they have theoretically limitless ammo, needing only to recharge after a short cooldown. So long as the ship is properly powered, the weapons will continue to function. Their main drawback is that the rounds are entirely stopped by shielding. Once the shields are down, however, they can start to do some pretty impressive hull damage. Ballistics fire a more traditional high-velocity kinetic round at the target. These rounds can directly penetrate shields and poke holes in the hull. They can do an immense amount of damage, but are extremely limited in ammo, making them perfect for hit-and-run tactics or for finishing off a target after blasting their shields down with lasers. Besides their biggest drawback of having limited ammo, they also have a small drawback in that while they can penetrate shields, their velocity will be slowed down significantly after passing through, reducing the damage they can do. To get the full effect of ballistic weaponry, it's always best to try to at least fire at unshielded targets. Another upside for ballistics is their lowered power consumption rates over their laser counterparts, making them perfect for stealth pilots looking to keep their SIGs low. If you're not sure what type of weapon your ship is using, you can view the hardpoints for your ship in the Vehicle Manager app of your Mobi Glass. There you can see the size of the weapon and a small description of the weapons loaded onto the ship. You can also load new weapons for your ship from this app as well, so long as your ship is stored. You can also refer to the weapon's MFD page for additional info if needed. Missiles are long-range, self-powered, self-guided munitions that can cripple targets with their payloads thanks to their shrapnel being able to penetrate shields. Much like mounted guns, missiles come in sizes ranging from 1 through 9, with 1 through 4 being more useful against fighters and 5 and up entering the torpedo range, making them far more useful against much larger vessels. Pressing the middle mouse button will enter Missile Operator Mode, or MOM for short. When in this mode, your primary weapons are disabled while you are in control of your missiles. While a target is selected, the center of the HUD will show a large circle representing the seeker head of the selected missile. Note that the seeker head is slave to the pilot's head, so if you're using either Free Look with Z or using hardware head trackers like TrackIR or Tobii Eye Tracker, you can slew the seeker head around your cockpit to make off-bore sight shots. If you don't have head trackers, you can also use Padlock to automatically look at locked targets, which I have a separate video covering in the description box below. When in Missile Operator Mode, on the right-hand side will show the type of missile that is currently selected and how many of that missile type are currently in the ship's stores. When toggling on Missile Operator Mode, a missile will immediately begin arming procedures indicated by the bar filling up on the right side. Once a missile is armed, indicated by the green bar, you can then press your left mouse button to fire the missile. If no target is selected, the missile will be dumbfired. You can queue up and arm additional missiles with the G key, launching up to a maximum of 4 per salvo. If your ship is equipped with more than one missile type, you can press the right mouse button to cycle to the next available missile type. To the left of the missile status is the missile's operational range denoted in kilometers. The top number refers to the missile's maximum range and the bottom number refers to the missile's minimum range. When outside these ranges, the missiles will not successfully track. If you have a target locked, in acceptable range, and within the large circle, the selected missile will begin to establish a lock. Once the lock is established, you will hear your ship's onboard computer confirm the lock.
Target acquired.
At this point, you can press the left mouse button to fire the missile immediately at the target. If you do, however, choose to wait a bit longer while the target is locked, the seeker head will begin to take your ship's targeting data and develop a stronger firing solution and target ID. The strength of this tracking is represented by the green circle filling up around the target. When the circle is fully complete, the missile is at its strongest lock possible on the target, making it hard for the enemy to break this lock. This means that you can either quickly snap-fire missiles with weaker sensor locks on the target, or choose to wait a bit longer to establish stronger locks, while possibly giving your opponent more time to react in the process. Also note that the seeker head circle will begin to shrink as you begin to establish a stronger lock. If the target escapes the circle during this process, the lock strength will begin to diminish. Remember, you can still fire your missile at any time. The lock strength simply is for establishing stronger sensor locks for the outbound missile. If the seeker head goes from green to red, then the missile is having trouble establishing a lock. This can be caused by numerous issues such as radar interference, countermeasures, losing seeker head gimbal lock, and much more. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at missile types. IR, or infrared missiles, track the heat output of a ship. The hotter the target, the easier it is for the seeker heads to establish and maintain a lock. EM, or electromagnetic missiles, track the electrical output of a target. Targets with high power draw, such as those using lasers for example, can exhibit a high EM output, making it easier for these missiles to track their prey. And finally, CS, or cross-section seeker types, track their target's radar cross-section. The higher the radar profile of the target, the easier it is for them to track. Stealth ships tend to have a smaller radar cross-section, making it difficult for these seeker heads to establish a solid lock on them. So what is the best missile to use for what situation? In general, all missile types are valid for nearly all situations, however some may be better than others. For example, if you're fighting a stealth ship, it may be hard to establish a CS missile against them compared to an IR one, but it's not impossible. If you're having trouble with a certain missile type establishing a lock with your current target, try cycling to other available missile types to see if you have better results. Additionally, missiles are easily fooled by countermeasures like decoys, since they create very strong signals that can lure missiles off of their target. This means that even strong locks can be broken if decoys are used correctly. Coupled with the fact that missiles are limited and cost quite a bit of cash to restock, you should always save missiles for real critical moments in the battle rather than firing them indiscriminately. A critical last piece of advice: missiles can accidentally acquire the wrong target while in flight, such as yourself or friendlies in the area. If you want to avoid this, make sure your locks are rock solid by giving the seeker head more time during the lock phase. If you want to alter the loadout of your ship with custom weapons and missiles, you can use the Vehicle Manager app in your Mobiglass like I mentioned before. In the description box below also is the Erkul DPS Calculator, which shows the various stats for different weapons, what you can load on your ship, and the locations where you can buy those weapons. Remember that weapons you will buy will be at the location you bought them at. So for example, if you want to change your weapons for your Aurora that's at Lorville, but you're all the way at Port Olisar with your Avenger, you won't be able to adjust the loadout of your Aurora until you physically fly it over to Port Olisar. Also, you cannot outfit ships that are not stored. Use an ASOP terminal, the terminal used to spawn your ship, to store ships currently on the pad. Once stored, you can adjust their loadouts with the Vehicle Manager app in the Mobiglass. Speaking of those ASOP terminals, the ones that you use to spawn your ship, it goes without saying that if your ship is ever destroyed or lost for whatever reason, these terminals are also where you go to file insurance claims to receive a replacement. Next to the gimbal status is the Countermeasures indicator. This will show you the current complement of countermeasures used for defeating missiles and obfuscating your signatures from enemy sensors. If an enemy is locking a missile on your ship, you will receive an audible warning. Once their missile leaves the rail, you will receive an additional audible warning that will signal a missile is in flight towards you. As the missile approaches your ship, a warning tone will cycle, becoming more rapid as the missile closes the distance before impact. Additionally, there will be a HUD warning at the bottom center that will show the missile approaching. It will also show info such as the seeker head type and a circle that will deplete, giving you a visual indicator of how much time you have before impact. This is where countermeasures come in. Decoys are primarily used for fooling missiles. They release strong multi-band signals that can not only hide your own signatures, but can also distract missiles coming at you. You can press H to release a single decoy, or you can hold down H to queue up additional decoys. Once released, the number you have queued up will then be launched. Don't overdo decoys. You only need a small amount to fool a missile. Anywhere between 1 to 3 is usually enough to fool most missiles. Larger ships may need a larger burst due to their inherently larger signature. Keep in mind that decoys inherit your current speed. So if you're flying straight at a missile and fire off decoys, they may be too close to your ship to be useful, causing the missile to fly dangerously close to you or fail to break the lock on your ship. A good habit to build is usually to drop decoys and then brake perpendicular to the incoming missile so that it can cleanly track the decoys while you safely escape the enemy missile's sensor range. Noise launchers are used for disrupting radar signals much like decoys. However, they have a much larger radius and much stronger signal disruption. They primarily are used for dropping yourself completely off of your opponent's radar temporarily, giving you time to make a quick escape or to move to an advantageous firing position. Now, they can be used to break missile locks, but they are not nearly as reliable in this regard compared to decoys, especially if the missile that's being fired at you is using an infrared tracking sensor. Furthermore, you need to also be inside the cloud of chaff released by the noise launcher to get the full effect. If you're moving too fast, you will end up just dumping the cloud behind yourself, making your ship appear on enemy radar almost immediately afterwards. Note that you can, however, drop these behind you so that pursuers that are behind you will be forced to fly through the cloud, disrupting their sensors in the process. Noise countermeasures are more limited than their decoy counterparts, so be sure to save them for the right moment. A good time to use a noise burst is when you're outnumbered and need to build some space between you and your target, or for stealth pilots looking to drop off people's scopes quickly. Staying still inside the cloud or flying in reverse tends to be the best way to use noise launchers effectively. Press J to release a burst of chaff from your noise launcher. At the top center of your HUD is an emissions readout. This readout gives you a visual representation of your ship's current emissions output. A brief recap from my flight video, from left to right, is infrared, cross-section, and electromagnetic. The white bars are your ship's current output. The small notch in the center is the ambient background noise for that emission type. When you launch a countermeasure, such as a decoy or noise, you'll notice this notch will expand, indicating the level of nearby background noise has grown thanks to the countermeasure in play. If your ship's emissions are lower than the current background noise, the bar will turn green. At this point, the enemy ships will have trouble targeting you as their sensors are having trouble dealing with the additional background noise that is now masking your signal. Additionally, nearby vessels can also mask your signature since their output can muddy the background noise and effectively hide your own ship's signature. Large vessels with high outputs can effectively hide smaller squadrons around them. The emissions indicator is important not just for defensive reasons such as defeating missiles, but also important for stealth-savvy pilots who want to stay off enemy radars. Now, stealth itself is a whole nother video topic that is well beyond the scope of this one. For now, let's go ahead and just move on. Alright, let's move on to power management. Power management is key for maximizing the performance of your craft in the heat of the moment. Power management can be ignored entirely if desired, but for those looking to get more out of their ships, let's dive in. All ships utilize a system known as the capacitor system. These capacitors store additional power from the power plant to further alter the characteristics of certain subsystems aboard the ship. To put it plainly, the more power you send to a subsystem, the better they perform. The less power, the worse they perform. There are 3 subsystems the capacitor system focuses on: weapons, thrusters, and shields. You can tap F5 to send power to the weapons, F6 to send power to engines, F7 to send more power to shields, and F8 to reset power assignments back to balanced. You can also hold down each F key to assign full power to that system, or simply just tap it to send a small amount instead. You can view the current power allocation by checking out the power page on your MFDs. The more power you send to a subsystem capacitor, the more power you will draw away from other subsystems. Power sent to the weapons will speed up energy weapon recharge times and increase their magazine size, giving you more rounds to fire at your target before you need to recharge the depleted capacitor. Note that assigning power to weapons only benefits energy weapons currently. Power sent to thrusters and engines will reduce the cost of using boost and speed up how fast the boost refills back up when not in use. Power sent to shields will reduce incoming damage to the shields and speed up the recharge time of those shields when they're not under fire. Every ship in the game have what are called components, which govern various aspects of the ship and can be affected during combat and general gameplay. Be sure to refer to the Vehicle Manager app or Erkul DPS Calculator to find out what type of component sizes you can load out on your ship, as component sizes for ships range from size 1 to 3. The list of components is quite extensive, ranging from weapons all the way to radar, avionics, batteries, and even CPUs. But for now, we'll focus on the most important ones for combat that you can customize currently. Much like weapons, these components can be swapped out from factory defaults to further customize your ship and suit your gameplay style. All components have what are called classifications. These classifications are competition, industrial, stealth, military, and civilian. Competition components are designed for high performance above all else, best suited for racing ships. Due to their high performance nature, you can expect them to wear out much more quickly compared to other component types. Industrial components are reliable, long-lasting, and very power-hungry. Perfect for industrial applications. Just be mindful that these components tend to have a very large EM signature. Stealth components sacrifice performance for minimal signature, allowing ships equipped with them to get closer to their targets or slip away with ease. Military, much like competition, are designed for high performance. They tend to have the most health at the cost of a high signature. While they can wear out fast over normal use, they also have the most health, allowing them to survive the heat of battle compared to other component types. They also tend to be the most expensive as well. Civilian components are quite common, middle-of-the-road hardware that are both cheap and effective at keeping the ship going, perfect for small haulers or personal craft. All components also come in quality grades, ranging from D to A, with A being the best in overall quality, performance, health, and of course the most expensive. The main components you'll want to keep an eye out for are coolers, power plants, shields, and quantum drives. Coolers govern the cooling process for all systems aboard the ship. During a fight, they will constantly pump coolant throughout the ship to keep thrusters, weapons, and other components cool. Damaged or worn out coolers can cause other components to heat up and wear out faster, causing additional damage that can severely impact the performance of the craft. Power plants generate onboard power for the ship. Damaged or worn power plants can have difficulty juicing up other systems, causing power failures either through the whole craft or a specific subsystem. For example, a damaged power plant may have trouble recharging shields while also keeping the thrusters powered, causing adverse effects to the flight profile. Shields govern the quality and strength of shields protecting the craft. Damaged or worn shields can have their emitters malfunction, cause random collapses, or shield strength drops. Quantum drives are necessary for interplanetary travel. While not exactly necessary for combat, they do govern the speed at which you can travel from planet to planet and the spool times as well. Certain drives are also much more efficient than others when it comes to quantum fuel usage. Okay, so now we have a basic understanding of our ship's health, combat HUD, radar signatures, weapons, power components, and countermeasures. Let's now go ahead and talk about tactics, strategy, and general tips to keep you alive out in the black. Keep in mind that small and medium vessels have what are known as bubble shields. These are shields that have a single encompassing bubble that will deplete no matter which direction the fire comes from. However, they can recharge rapidly when not under fire. On the flip side, larger vessels with size 3 shields have them broken up into quadrants. If you want to crack these big boys, you'll need to collapse a shield quadrant to start doing notable damage to the exposed region. The main downside for a lot of these shield facings on larger vessels is that their charge times will be much slower when outside of combat compared to their smaller counterparts. The best engagement distances are around 800 meters and below. Beyond that, most of your shots will most likely miss, costing precious ammo. As you close the distance with your opponent, corkscrew rolls are a great way to trade shots while dodging the return fire. Once you're within 800 meters, nose up on the target and unload your weapons. If you need to recharge, switching power to weapons can speed up the recharge time of your lasers. If you're taking too many hits, power to shields can help here. Whenever someone or something targets your ship, you can press the 4 key on your keyboard to target whoever is targeting you. This is great if you want to see who is potentially gunning for you both inside and outside of combat. Keep in mind that this key only works if whoever is targeting you is also being picked up by your radar systems. If you're getting ganged up on, it may be beneficial to fly defensively while switching maximum power to your shields to reduce the incoming damage and help them recharge fast as you try to slip away. A common mistake newer players make is they will try to fly erratically to dodge incoming fire. Always instead stay calm and collected. Instead of swinging your mouse wildly around and applying random inputs, instead roll while applying vertical thrust to avoid incoming fire. And of course, if all else fails, get some distance between you and your aggressor. When using missiles, it's best to save them for opening salvos when closing the distance with your target. It's also best to use them for targets attempting to run away. But like I've mentioned before, save them for the right moments, don't waste them out of the gate. Missiles on the battlefield are marked with spinning triangles. Blue or green are generally friendly missiles, and hostile missiles are marked in red. You can also target these missiles just like any other radar signal, meaning that a skilled pilot can actually shoot these out of the sky if they can land a lucky hit on it. You can also see these missiles on your radar display marked with a red plus symbol. When you're approaching your opponent, chances are that you both will be approaching each other quite rapidly. As you come within weapons range, you will both more than likely pass each other as you slow down to engage. This is known as the merge. After the merge, both ships will turn in on each other and begin the dogfight. You can choose to open fire on your target during the merge or instead use that as an opportunity to be more defensive. If you continue to blow past your target over and over, this is known as jousting. You will tend to see jousting behaviors more from other players than actual NPCs. Be careful if you end up jousting, as your controls are limited at higher speeds, which tends to lead you to crash into objects around the battlefield or even your opponent. Never fly with any gear you don't want to lose. If you plan on purely dogfighting, then bringing a simple flight suit is really all you need. If you bring a fully armored and geared up character to a dogfight, you will most likely lose all that gear if you crash or are shot down. Always plan ahead before diving headfirst into a conflict. Along with your MFDs in your cockpit, there's also another panel known as the Annunciator panel. This panel can give you quick alerts such as when someone is targeting you, a missile is inbound, or your shields are down, and much more. Keep an eye on this panel. Far too many times I've seen rookie pilots tunnel vision and miss important alerts on this panel, such as their shields collapsing in the middle of a fight. And lastly, before we move on, I briefly glossed over the ESP indicator on the left side of the HUD during my basic flight video. ESP stands for Enhanced Stick Precision, and all it does is it lowers the control sensitivity as the crosshair gets closer to the pips, making precision shots much more accurate. By default, this is always on and can be toggled off. However, there is no default key to turn this off, so you will need to buy a custom one. I do, however, highly recommend that you leave this on, as the precision is useful not just for all users, but for those that use joysticks as well. Atmospheric combat brings a whole heap of new variables to the fight. A good rule of thumb to keep in mind is that the slower you go, the easier it will be for your ship to make tighter turns. Ships with a more aerodynamic flight profile will also do much better at atmospheric fighting than ships that don't. For example, a Mustang will fly much better than an Aurora thanks to the Mustang's wings and sleeker profile, whereas the Aurora is shaped more like a brick and will fly like one as well, especially on planets with higher levels of atmospheric density and gravity. If you find yourself dragged into a dogfight inside a planet's dense atmosphere while flying a ship that's not best for atmospheric flight, climb. The higher altitude means less drag on your ship, allowing your ship to maneuver much better. And vice versa. If your ship has an aerodynamic profile, dragging a slower or less aerodynamic opponent into the denser air can give you a huge advantage. If the ship you're flying has support gunner stations, like a Vanguard or a Hurricane, always get those spots filled if you can. I can't stress this enough. Gunner stations are a huge force multiplier for ships that have them. Not only do they make your ship a veritable wrecking ball when facing tougher or more numerous opponents, but it's also just fun to destroy things together with friends or even randoms out in the black. When going up against strong multi-crew ships and their gunners, keep your distance. Multi-crew ships are extremely strong at close ranges due to the high accuracy of their turrets. However, one of the main drawbacks multi-crew ships currently face in the game is that their velocity of their rounds can't keep up with ships that are further than 800 meters from them. This distance, coupled with evasive maneuvers as you dump DPS on them, will ensure that you can take them down with minimal risk. It also helps if you bring cannons along for the ride as well. If you want to practice your dogfighting, I strongly recommend that you fire up a single-player Vanduul Swarm match in Arena Commander. Vanduul Swarm is very easy and a great way to get a feel for your ships in combat. Once you feel comfortable, take it up a notch to Pirate Swarm, which is much more difficult. You can also do multiplayer Arena Commander matches for both modes, playing co-op with other players. Playing these modes in multiplayer will also allow you to earn Rec, which you can then use to rent weapons and other ships to test out in Arena Commander without ever putting your stuff in the persistent universe at risk. If you want to dip your toes into PvP Arena Commander, you can give Battle Royale and Free Fly a bash, as these are the most popular game modes among the PvP and dueling communities. Keep in mind, if you decide to practice some PvP and Arena Commander matches, there is some etiquette involved, particularly with duels. First, you'll want to target your opponent, who will target you as well. As you approach, you can toss out a decoy. If your opponent does the same, then they have accepted your request to duel, after which you will be expected to merge with each other. After the merge, the duel is on. Now, not everybody follows this etiquette, of course, especially rookies who aren't aware of the unspoken etiquette that goes on in Arena Commander. But it's good to keep in mind if you are confused as to why this random guy is shooting out decoys while flying around you. When using gimbaled weapons, always try to keep the target in front or slightly above or below the center of the HUD. Avoid having targets off to the side, as gimbals work best attacking targets along a vertical axis. So, roll into your targets if necessary to keep them in view and maintain optimal tracking. Remember that boost provides a huge bump in power output to your current firing thrusters. If you're having trouble trying to cut off more nimble opponents, hitting your boost can give you some additional power to cut into their maneuvers, allowing you to blow past them or give you an out to burn away and let yourself recharge. Boost is like a stamina bar. Always try to keep it regularly charged, as it can save your life when used at the right moment. At the center of your HUD, you may occasionally see red warning messages appear here. These warnings will notify you of any anomalous behavior. The most common you will see here is major torque imbalance. This means that you have a thruster or engine that is damaged, and IFCS is struggling to keep the flight characteristics smooth, resulting in the ship feeling rough in its handling or even pulling or spinning when under heavy thrust. When you see this message, it's probably wise to get yourself fixed up at the nearest port. You can use the Power or Heat MFD's Page's Items tab to review which thruster or component is damaged if need be. This concludes my guide to space combat. There's so much more I could talk about, but this video has already gone on long enough as it is. Once again, check out those additional videos linked below if you want more guidance on specific topics. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more gameplay, tips, tricks, and much more. Also hit that like button if you did enjoy this video and found it helpful, as it really does help out small channels like myself and ensures that it's spread by the holy algorithm to other pilots in need of the help. If you have questions not directly addressed in this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments below, as I do try to read and respond to them as much as I can. Thanks for watching, until next time, fly safe, and I'll see you all in the black.